Hi guys, I'm introducing notebook sample number 11. It is our panel seam here. As you can see, we have our front, we have a side dart, we have no waist darts. We have a full seam. We don't really have a side seam, instead we have a side panel. And then the back is the regular dart at the shoulder and dart at the waist. So we're going to be drafting that, and as usual, I do like you to take a minute and try to imagine how the patterns will look. When you're done, you should have 3 pattern pieces as well that we're going to draft here, and I'll let you look at these at the end of the video laying flat. But let's go ahead and give this side panel notebook sample a shot. Hi guys, for notebook sample number 11, you're going to need to start with your front sloper with the 2 darts, and we'll also be using the back sloper. In this notebook sample, we are doing the panel style line. Here's an illustration of the finished look. So you can see there's darts on her back, which are similar to the darts already on your sloper to start with, so it doesn't look like we're going to have to move those around. There is the dart on her front at her bust right here, but there's no dart on the panel, and then there's no dart down here. So it's nice to kind of analyze the design before we start, and I always like you to see if you could imagine what the pattern pieces look like before following the book's instructions. Okay, but let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so cut out those pieces. Okay, so figure 1, it wants us to trace our patterns. Well, I used a photocopy, so I guess that's technically tracing it. So I can jump down to draw slash lines to the bust point. So from our dart points, they want us to draw slash lines to the bust point. Okay. Now they'd like us to mark our mid-armhole location. So this can be subjective. It's mid-armhole, wherever you think. It doesn't have to be exact. It's kind of a design thing. I mean, this seems pretty good to me, about right here. This is like our mid-armhole, I would say. And they want us to do it on both sides to mark it. Just a little mark there. Now they want us to draw panel style lines from the waist and end 1/2 inch from our mid-armhole line. Okay, so now remember how we're working on the half scale? So instead of 1/2 inch, I'm going to mark it half of 1/2 inch. What is half of 1/2 inch? If you said 1/4 inch, 1/4, you would be correct. So I'm just gonna mark a little dot right there and another dot 1/4 inch here. Okay, and then it looks like they want a straight style line up to that point. So I'm getting my ruler to align straight at the bottom. So it's kind of squared off, and I'm just gonna draw a straight line down, and I'm gonna do the same style line on the back piece. Okay. And the final instruction for figure 1 is to draw a curved line to the armhole. So we can use our tool to help out with that if we like. Okay, so now we can move on to figure 3. They would like us to separate our back pattern pieces along the style line. Okay, now in figure 3, they also add notches in the illustration. They don't mention it in the instructions, but I'm just gonna go ahead and copy them and add a couple little notches. Actually, I don't even need my ruler. So doing usually double notches signifies the back side as opposed to the front. So now when I slash this guy, it'll be real easy to line back up. So as you start getting lots of pattern pieces, it can get a little confusing what gets sewn to what. Okay, there we are. That is figure 3. Oh, and then it wants us to draw a 1-inch extension at the center back. Okay, so I'm going to get some paper to add to that 1-inch extension. Okay, now again, we are working on the half scale, so instead of 1-inch extension, I'm going to do just half of 1 inch, which is 1/2 inch. Okay. And they also threw some notches on that piece as well, again with the double notches. Okay, so we're finished with figure 3. Figure 4, they would like us to separate our front pattern along the style line. Okay, it's separated. Now they'd like us to close our dart legs on the front side panel and notch it at that location. Okay, so to close the dart legs, we really just have to line it up like this. And voila, they're closed. So I'll get my tape. Okay, and they would like a little notch right here at where the dart point is. Okay, now they would like us to close the dart legs on the front side panel. Well, we just did that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is done. And then, oh, they want us to close this dart now on the front panel. Unfortunately, my book is calling it front side panel, but I might call it front panel since this is now a side panel. A little confusing, but we'll get through it. So they want us to close this dart. So hopefully we remember how to do that from our other notebook samples. It looks like to me in the book, they redrew the dart legs to meet at the bust point. So I think we should definitely do that. There we are. And same right here. Okay. So I redrew my dart legs instead of meeting at the dart point. Remember how that was the dart point? Now our dart legs are meeting at the bust point. And same for right here. That was our dart point, but we want our legs to meet at the bust point so we can make it a working pattern. This doesn't change the fit. We're not losing or making the garment tighter. We're just working from the dart point instead, or the bust point instead of the dart point. And we always add back our dart point later. Okay. Okay, so now I'm working to the bust point, and I'm gonna get this guy in working mode as well. Cutting two, but not through. It's so delicate. There we are. And I don't need this right now. I'll add that back later. And we're closing the bottom waist, because if you remember from the illustration, there was no dart at her bottom waist. Okay, there we are. Okay, now that this is closed, they would like me to draw a dart leg, and they're saying put the dart point 1/2 inch away from the bust point. So I'm gonna need some paper for that. Okay, so I'm redrawing my dart point now. Instead of 1/2 inch, I'm working on half scale. So 1/2 of 1/2 is 1/4. So now this is my new dart point. That's still my bust point and will always be my bust point. But now I'm drawing my dart legs to my dart point. So one little dart leg. And there is the other dart leg. And this is still my edge. So I can probably cut that stuff out. Okay, so let's see here. This looks like the figure 4 is now complete. So we can move on to figure 5. Okay. So in figure 5, we want to get rid of this seam. If we were to sew all of our pieces together, let's get this guy off of the paper, hold on a second. So if we were to sew our pieces together, we would have a seam line here, a seam line here, and a seam line here. But in our illustration, they want this to be a panel. They don't want there to be a line after sewing. So figure 5, we're gonna eliminate that seam line. And we're just gonna place them together and tape them together. Do you notice how mine's a little longer? We'll have to true that up. I wonder if that's happening to you too. Okay, and then our grain line is going to be just right in the middle of it. Interesting. So it looks like my style line was a little bit more thin on the back than the book's. That's okay, it'll still work. So for my grain line, I'm gonna go like this actually. So this will be the direction that I will cut it out of fabric. Okay, and then I'm gonna call this side panel will be the name. Okay, I got my notches for my back piece. I got it for my front piece. And it wants me to notch right here for my armhole if I were to sew an armhole. And that's it. It says to complete the pattern for a fit test. So now all we have to do is just label our pattern pieces and cut it out, add our seam allowance. Actually, add seam allowance before you cut it out, and then sew it up, and we'll see how it fits. Okay, adding seam allowance. I'm going to trace my pieces. Perhaps I should tape them. No, I'll tape them. Okay, so for me, I'm going to leave the armhole raw edge. And I also want to leave the neck raw edge. But I'm going to sew everything else closed. So I'm going to sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then I'm going to have the waist be raw edge too. Close this dart. Add my seam allowance here as well. I might just cut it